Yo, what's good, guys? It's Austin here, or Luna. So I am extremely excited to tell today's story time. It is one that I've been holding on to for quite a while, and one of those stories that, every time I tell one of my friends about this, or every time I mention it to, anybody on the internet, the first thing they ask is, have you told that yet on your channel? So I think it's a pretty good one, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it, and it's very interesting. So I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do, and let's get into it. Now, I've talked about it in the past, but from where I'm from, in New York, we have some cults. If you don't know what a cult is, I would just Google it, because honestly, I couldn't even really give you the exact definition. But from what I've seen in the past, usually a cult is usually a small group of people, or a big group of people, that share the same religious beliefs in a very, radical way, and it's usually pretty, evil seeming. Now, I'm not saying that all cults are evil, but I'd say the majority of the ones that I've seen are, at least from where I live. Now, I've only ever really had one or two experiences with these people. I told one of the stories in the past where I ran into one of them at an abandoned site that I was exploring. And then there's this one, which is definitely the crazier one. So, yeah. Now, this all starts off as a regular day in 2019. At this point, I was single. I wasn't dating anybody. I had just gotten out of a pretty serious relationship. I was living alone in my apartment in New York. And I had a pretty good thing going. My routine every day was pretty strong. I was waking up at the same hour every day, doing my videos, making my music, hanging out with my friends when I had free time. I had a very good routine and life going at the time. Really, the only thing that kind of sucked was recently I had gotten out of a relationship and I was feeling a little bit of that post-breakup heartbreak that I'm sure all of you have felt before. And I was a little bit lonely. Your boy was on the lonely side. And it's just common breakup feelings, right? And for the most part, I was tolerating it relatively well. But just like a lot of people that go through a breakup, they jump on Tinder almost immediately, or they go to the bar and they try and find somebody new to distract themselves from thinking about the person they just broke up with. And unfortunately, in this situation, I was one of those people. Immediately, I downloaded Tinder and Bumble, and I started going out a lot more, trying to meet some new girl to take my mind off the fact that I just broke up with my other girlfriend, and I was sad about it. And let me just say, before I continue with the story, that is a bad way to handle a breakup. If you immediately run to a dating app, or you go to the club and try and meet somebody, or go try and date someone right away, odds are you're not going to feel any better. You're going to feel worse, actually, because you're trying to replace this person, and the new person isn't the old person. You're not over the old person yet, and then the new person gets hurt because you can't, get over your last relationship. So yeah, I don't recommend doing that. But unfortunately, that's what I was doing back then. I was like, I'm kind of in a heartbroken mood, so I'm going to try and distract myself with, trying to hook up with people and maybe finding the one, you know what I mean? And it never worked. But through this period of time, when I was on these dating apps trying to find someone to, start dating again, I found somebody by the name of Jessica, okay? Now, that wasn't her actual name. I'm not going to be giving out her actual name because, privacy. But let's just call her Jessica, okay? And I matched with her on Tinder, and immediately we start talking, and then we exchange phone numbers, and then we jump on FaceTime, and the first night I ever talked to her, I probably FaceTimed her for 6 hours, literally all night. And I remember being like, oh, this girl's really, really cool. I had never had such a good first interaction with somebody before, and just in that 6 hours, it felt like we had known each other for a year. So yeah, naturally, your boy was excited. I was like, cool, this girl seems really awesome, maybe this will go somewhere. And from there, we started FaceTiming every day, and 2 weeks later, we both had agreed that we wanted to meet up soon and hang out and go on our first date. So we did. 2 weeks later, she came to my house, and then from there, we went to a restaurant together and had our first dinner together / date. And as far as first dates go, this was a really good first date. Everything was going really, really good and amazing. But after the first date, everything went wrong very quickly. So after we got done having dinner, we went back to my apartment, right? And we ended up hanging out there for I don't know, maybe another hour. And at that point, it was very late and it was time for her to go home. And I walked her back to her car, like a gentleman trying to be a good, man. And she was like, hey, do you want to come back to my house with me? Now, naturally, me being very interested in this girl, I couldn't say no. I was like, of course I would. And she was like, cool, why don't you bring some clothes for the night? And I'm like, all right, cool, I'll grab some clothes. I'll be right back. Just playing it cool. But in my head, I'm like, oh shit, oh shit. So I went up to my apartment, grabbed some clothes, and in my head the whole time I was very excited, but also thinking why didn't you just stay at my spot? We were already at my apartment, already had a nice room, the whole place is very clean. But, if I had to guess, she probably just didn't want to spend the night without having clothes for the next day, or maybe she just didn't feel comfortable spending the night at somebody else's house. Maybe she preferred her own bed, because that would make total sense, because I used to be like that when I was younger. Like, when I was a teenager, I used to never sleep at other people's houses unless I really, really had to. I'd usually prefer to be the one hosting all the people at my house. So I didn't question it. I got my clothes, I packed up a quick bag, went back downstairs, got in the car with her, and we were off to her house. Now, she lived about 30 minutes away from where I lived. I lived in the city, like downtown, and she lived out towards the country where, like, not a lot of people are. And I remember on the drive there, she looked over at me and she made kind of a face. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, so there's something I haven't told you yet, and I just want to tell you now before you see the house and think, what the hell? And I was like, sure, like, what is it? And she was like, so I live in a very, very large house. And I was like, okay, that's cool with me. And she goes, no, like, you don't get it. Like, it's huge. It used to be a school. We converted it into a house, and a lot of people live there, not just me. And I was like, what do you mean a lot of people live there? Like an apartment complex? She's like, no, it's not an apartment complex. It's a community living center for people in my group. And I was like, your group? What do you mean your group? She goes, my religious group. My parents, me, my whole family were a part of it, and we live on one big community property. And I was like, oh, so it's like a church kinda. And she's like, yeah, kind of like that. It's like a church/house. We all like sleep there, and we live together, and then we all go to church in the morning together in this big like room that we have in the house. And I was like, that's pretty cool. What religion is it? And she was like, it's kind of like a form of Christianity. And I was like, kind of like Christianity? What do you mean? Like Catholic? And she's like, no, it's more Christian than Catholic, but it's not quite Christianity. It's like an in-between, but a lot more strict. Like, you have to follow really specific rules and like live in a community setting and live amongst each other. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, sure. Sounds good. Just kind of nodded my head because I really didn't know what she was talking about. Honestly, in my head, it sounded kind of cultish. So I was like, whatever. I'm not going to judge it until I see it. Like, whatever, right? Plus, just the way this girl acted and the way she kind of presented herself and the way she talked, I just really didn't see a red flag with her. I thought that, like, she was a cool girl. So, fast forward, we get to her house, we pull up, and she was not kidding. This place was beyond massive. Like, it was huge, dude. Like, ginormous front yard, ginormous school-looking buildings. It used to be a school. And then, like, in the front yard, they had one of those driveways that you could drive up, and it went in a loop. So, like, you could, drop someone off and loop back out. It was just crazy looking. So she parked her car. We get out of the car. We go into the house. And immediately I realized, like, a lot of people were still awake. There was, like, 4 people at the kitchen table right when you walk in. And they were all, like, hanging out talking. And there was this woman making coffee. And she turns around and she sees me and Jessica. And she goes, hey, Jessica, you're home. Who's your little friend? And first of all, I was like a whole foot taller than this girl, okay? So I'm not little. That hurt my ego a little bit. I'm 6 foot, okay? Well, 5'11.9, but close enough, okay? And Jessica's just like, oh, this is Austin. We met on Tinder. We went out on a date tonight, and I invited him to spend the night tonight, and we're going to be going up to my room now. And she goes, oh, like, not so fast. Austin, you want something to drink? And I couldn't really see her face very well because it was kind of like dim lit in the kitchen. But when she asked me if I wanted a drink, she got kind of close to me, and I could see her face a lot better. And I'm not trying to be mean here, but when I tell you that her face scared the shit out of me, it scared the shit out of me. She had a very, like, evil-looking smile, and she had these boils all over her face. Like, they looked like hives. It looks like what happens when you get stung by a bee and you're allergic. Like, hives all over the face. And she was giving me this really creepy smile. And I was just like, no thanks, I don't want anything to drink. And she goes, no, please, you have to try my homemade tea. It's the best, it's out of this world. And this creepy guy at the table is like, yeah, you gotta try it, man, it's really good. And I was like, no, it's okay, I'm good. And she goes, no, I insist. And she grabs my arm and starts leading me over to the table where this tea is. She starts pouring up a glass of tea for me. And I was like, I appreciate it, but I'm really not thirsty. I'm not gonna have any. And she goes, don't come into my home and not drink this. You're insulting me if you don't. And in my head, I'm thinking like, yo, did I just walk into a fucking horror movie? Like, what? I don't know what's in this drink. I don't want to drink it. So I tell her, I'm like, listen, I'm sorry if you perceive it that way, but maybe it's best I leave then. And then Jessica chimes in and she's like, no, you don't have to drink that. Let's go upstairs. And she like leads me away from everybody and kind of like runs me upstairs. And we get into her room and we lay down and we start kind of like cuddling and hanging out. And like, I'm just not feeling it now. I'm like in a really weirded out mood. I'm in this house where like hundreds of people probably live, and some weird witch-looking lady just tried to get me to drink some random concoction, and she said if I didn't drink it, I would disrespect her. And I'm just like nervous now, right? Like, I'm thinking, what the hell did I just walk into here? And Jessica could sense it, and she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm a little bit weirded out by that whole like interaction that just happened downstairs. And she's like, Austin, I get it. It's a little bit odd. That's why I tried to warn you. But like, don't worry. They're all harmless. They're just a little bit weird, stuck in the past, stuck in their ways kind of thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And after that, we ended up just like watching Netflix and, doing our thing. And like 2 hours goes by, right? At this point, we're just laying down, watching a movie, cuddling. And I have to pee really bad. So I ask her, I'm like, where's the bathroom? She's like, down the hall, 6 doors into the left. I'm like, okay, 6 doors into the left. I will try and remember that. So I go out in the hallway. I go down 6 doors to the left. I open it. It's the bathroom. I got it right. I go in there. I do my business, wash my hands. And then I leave the bathroom and start walking back to Jessica's room. And as I'm walking back to Jessica's room, one of the doors opens. And sure enough, it's that lady again. It's that creepy fucking lady. And she walks out and she looks at me. And she goes, oh, Austin, going back to bed now? And I was like, yeah, I think so. Pretty sure I'm staying the night. And she goes, oh, if you're staying the night, you have to come to our service in the morning. Now, look, I'm not trying to disrespect God here, but I really didn't want to go to church the next day because I didn't even know what the religion was. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm going to try to if I can get up early enough. And she's like, no, like, you're not going to try to. You can't sleep in this house unless you attend service every morning. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll be there. She goes, I'm serious. You better be there. And I was like, I'll be there. She goes, okay, have a wonderful night. And she walks away and closes the door. And now I'm just like, yo, I have to get the fuck out of here, like, right now. So I go into Jessica's room. I'm like, hey, I know I said I was going to stay the night, but that lady just creeped me out in the hallway again. She said I had to, like, attend church in the morning or something, or else I can't sleep here. I think I'm just going to go home, okay? And she was like, sure, I'll give you a ride. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'll get an Uber. Don't worry about it. And she's like, Austin, there's no way you're finding an Uber this far out in the country this late at night. Like, let me drive you. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And she gets up and she puts her shoes on and we leave her room and we go downstairs. And as we're walking out, I notice something hung right above the door. It's a sign. It's essentially like a giant overhead sign hung above the door. And I didn't see it when I first walked in because I was facing the other direction. But now that I was leaving, I could see it very clearly. And I didn't know what it meant, so I wrote it down in my notes on my phone to Google once I got in the car. So me and Jessica get in the car, and the first thing I do is pull up in my phone, and I quietly search up that name that I saw on the sign. And the first result I see is the name that was on the sign with the words religious cult after it. And I search it up, and I see all these links that are just all about this cult, this local cult in my city. And I click images, and I can see all the photos of this house that I was just in. And it's essentially their headquarters. It's like the community living hub that this cult all lives at together. And I'm finding photos of it that date all the way back to like the 1970s. This house has been their hub for like decades. It was around before I was born. And I'm like freaking out inside now, because now I know that I almost just spent the night in a cult house, and I'm on a date with a girl that's a part of the cult. So I had to say something. I couldn't just be quiet about it. I had to get some like clarification from Jessica. So I spoke up. I was like, hey, so I don't want to be nosy, and I'm sorry if this is like disrespectful here, but I just Googled the words that were on that sign hanging above your front door, and it all points to this like religious cult, and it says that like this house is where you guys all live. Like, are you a part of this? And she was like, yeah. If you want to call it that, sure, but it's really not a cult, okay? Like, it's just a religion that we all follow, and we live under the same roof, but we're not like a cult. We're not hurting people. We're not doing Satan sacrifices. Like, it's not what you think, Austin. Like, don't buy into like the internet making you all freaked out. And I was like, no, I'm not. I want like some clarification. That's all. Like, I didn't know if this was true or not. And she's like, it's not. Don't believe it. I'm like, okay. So she ends up taking me home. I don't ask any more questions because she seems very bothered with the fact that I found out about, this group that she's a part of, cult. I'll just call it what it is. And I get back to my house and immediately I jump on my computer and I start watching videos about this group. I start watching like documentaries. I'm looking up like history pages and stuff that like are on the internet, and I'm learning a lot. And it's everything she's telling me it wasn't. She was saying that like it didn't have Satanism behind it, and I found out real quickly that it does, and it's not like Christianity at all. I also found out that some people that joined the cult, like 3 or 4 people, just went missing and they were never found again. So that's just not fun to find out and really terrifying. So naturally, I couldn't keep dating Jessica. I just couldn't. Like with all the things I just learned, I couldn't. So I cut it all off. And she knew. The minute I said that I didn't want to talk to her anymore, and I said it in a very nice way, I wasn't mean about it, she responded, she was like, "It's because of the cult thing, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I told you it's not what you think, but it seems that you made up your mind already." And I was like, "I understand, but Jessica, these people you're living with and this religion that you're a part of, I'm finding things linked to it that involve people missing." And these weren't conspiracies, by the way. Like, I was literally finding legitimate cases of people missing that were a part of this cult. So I was like, nah, I'm not getting involved in this. I'm out. So yeah, unfortunately, I had to cut things off with Jessica. She didn't talk to me anymore. I didn't talk to her. And as far as I could tell, she stayed living in that house with all the rest of the cult members. And yeah, that's that. I still cannot fathom that woman that offered me that mystery drink. Could I have drank it and nothing would have happened? Sure. But also, I could have drank it and just like passed out and woken up to a ritual of me being like baptized into their cult society. So yeah, I don't know. Either way, some real creepy, devilish shit. And to think I almost spent the night there and had to attend church in the morning. Yeah, I'm glad I got out when I did, and I'm glad Jessica kind of like understood my fear, because she could have been like that older lady and tried to like get me to stay and like attend church in the morning, but she didn't. So shout out to Jessica for that. But yeah, guys, that is the story of how I accidentally ended up in a cult house and almost spent the night in it. I mean, I technically did spend the night because it was past midnight, but I didn't sleep, so that's good. I got out of there before I fell asleep. And yeah, that's that. The moral of this story is, don't go over to someone's house and spend the night if you don't know them very well. And make sure you can trust the people that you're dating before you go and spend the night at their houses. But yeah, guys, that is the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like on the video if you did. I would really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. And subscribe if you're new. I will see you guys all later. Peace.
I'm in a bad mood, I can see it today. I remember all my friends and now